Everybody wants more money. Well, most of us anyway. Some of us want a side hustle or two. But before we get into those, it's important to sort out the fundamentals. And that starts with your earned income. So we all want a pay rise, right? But it's important to note that a pay rise usually comes with more responsibility. So you need to make sure you're willing to take that on before we move forward. And also it might make you a little bit unpopular, depending on the role you get. You might be asked to do things that are really unpleasant or to people that you like or know at work. So you need to make sure you can handle that as well. Now, the main mistake people make is just going to their boss and asking for a pay rise. Like I said, everybody wants more money. Your boss has heard this 1,000 times before. What you need to do is you're going to have to give your boss a reason to justify giving you a pay rise. This is why it's important to be clear, confident and concise when asking and have your view backed up by facts. To back up your view, you're going to need to do some research. Now, market research can be things like Glassdoor or PayScale, and you're going to work out what other people are getting paid in your sector. Now, if you can't find any of these on those sort of sites, simply go on Indeed or something like that and look up roles doing what you do and see what they're paying. Now, the amounts that these companies will be paying will be for a new starter. Well, you're presuming that salary is a starter salary that they're offering, and then you'll be able to work your way up. So take that base salary and add a little bit on because of your experience. Now, it's worth looking at your competitors also to see what they're paying, because I'm sure your boss will be very aware of what they pay their staff. And it's worth getting a few examples when you get in similar roles, so you can take an average of all them roles, or at least to know what a high salary in your role is and what a low starter salary is. So when you get into negotiations, you're fully informed at what the range scale is. Now, like I said, if your employer knows what your competitors are paying or what a top pay rate is for what you do, or perhaps you are the top pay rate because your company is really good, there are a few other things you can do when it comes to asking for a pay rise. What you need to do is think back to when you started the role. Think about what the role entailed back then and what it entails now, and work out not only what extra you do now, because I guarantee you do extra than when you first started, but see how the pay has changed, if it's changed at all during that process. You need to make a list of these extra things to show your value and your worth, and we also need to consider how good you are at your job, the efficiency. When you started, I bet you were quite slow. Everyone's slow when they start something new, or they're getting used to new systems or ways of working or people or buildings or whatever it might be. But now I'm sure you're a lean, mean working machine. So that needs to be considered as well. And also take into note again, has your pay increased over time or has it stayed the same? Work out what's going on in your situation. The whole aim of everything we're doing is to try and show the value you bring. The value you bring over your previous self, somebody else, or anybody else they might get to do the job. If your role hasn't changed or you're not doing anything extra than when you started, you've got two choices really. You either make a bit of effort and build into asking for a pay rise by doing these extra things, or, which is our next point, you can use these as part of your negotiations when asking for a rise. Perhaps there are some extra duties you might be able to do or some extra responsibility you can take on to justify giving you more money. Remember me saying more money comes with more responsibility? Well, here it is. Ask for some responsibility. Maybe someone needs training up. You offer to train new starters up, and that means that you're going to get more than everyone else doing your role, or more than you did before. The good thing about doing it this way round is that you're not going to get stuck doing more work for the same money. And this can be really frustrating. You try your hardest, you take on all these extra roles in the hope that you're going to work her out the ladder, maybe get a rise, get on the top band, whatever it might be for you. And you end up stuck with all these things and on the same money as the people that do not a lot. Now, don't worry if you can't think of anything else. I'm sure your boss will have loads of ideas. So if it comes to negotiations and you're hitting a brick wall, just simply ask, is there anything else I can do or anything else I can provide or bring to the table for the business that would justify me getting a pay rise? So you know how much the market value is for the role you do, you know the efficiency and what you bring to the table, you know what you've added to the role or what you could add to the role to justify a rise or more money. Now we need to get into how you're going to ask for the rise itself. You need to sit down and think of a figure you want to receive as an offer. Now, you can't be wishy-washy here. I want to earn 20 to 30 grand. You need to think of a definite number. You have done your research, you know what it is, you know what you want. You're going in confident about what you want to get. Now, you also need to be a little bit clever and a little bit cheeky here, because negotiations are just that. likelihood is if you go with a number and your boss agrees to it straight away, your number was too low and he would have paid or she would have paid a lot more. Now, what you need to do is add a little bit onto where you want to be. Say you're on 22, you're looking to get 26, maybe you go 27.5 as the figure you're asking for. That way there's a little wiggle room to be knocked down or negotiations to go to and from. Now, if your boss is like my old boss, they're not going to want to pay the first price they hear. They want to get a little bit in return as well. Now, you don't want to come out and just say this number. Only give this number if you are asked or if you receive an offer. Then give this number. And when giving it, be confident but polite. It's not all about money. You don't want to be seeming money hungry, even though perhaps that's the only reason you're really there. You want to make it about value. You're here because you add value to the company, and the value you add deserves a higher rate. So perhaps when you're asked, you say, look, I've been looking around, and for the value I bring to the table and the efficiency I work at, I believe that £27,500 is a competitive salary. Now, this can be really, really nerve-wracking, and it depends what your boss is like. So perhaps you can practice with some friends or some family, do a bit of role play and get used to what you're going to say. Write it down. That really helps me a lot, so you know what you want to say, how you want to say it, and just practice with anybody. The next thing that is really, really important is the time you ask for a pay rise. Now, some places have pay reviews and a lot of people wait until the pay review to ask for a pay rise. Now, this may be both good and bad. If the pay reviews at your company are at different times of the year, so yours is different from somebody else's, then this can be a great time to ask, because after all, that's what you're there for, a pay review. So asking for a pay rise is the perfect opportunity. However, if your company does all your pay reviews at the same time of year, this could be the worst time to ask. Your company, if they do it all at the same time and they're going to give everybody a pay rise, they're shelling out a lot of money at this moment in time, and asking for more, you can see easily why it wouldn't be available. Also, as they're considering everybody as a whole, if they give you a rise, they might feel more inclined to give everybody else who does the same job or on your pay level a rise of a similar size. Therefore, when you ask, it's not just you asking or you they're considering everybody on your level or around your pay. So they're less likely to say yes if in their mind they're thinking, well, if I give it to you, you and you. So with that being said, there are obviously some better times to ask if this is the case for you. Now, if you've just completed a big project and you've done it very well, then this could be a perfect time to ask. Obviously, that is if you've done a good job. If you've messed it up, probably don't ask for a pay rise. You could also ask if you know the company's doing really well, they've made a record profit one year, or they've just won a load of new work or some new contracts. Then you've got the end of the financial year. So at this time, they'll be sorting out their budgets for next year. So if you ask halfway through, there might not be any room in the budget to give you a rise. But if you ask at the end of the financial year, ready for the next year, they can put your rise in the next financial year's budgets. There's nothing worse than asking for a rise, saying, yep, we'd love to give you one, we're going to give you one, but you know, the budgets won't allow it until next year, and then next year comes round and they're off doing something else. Obviously, you can also ask just before or just after you've taken on new duties, like we said before. However you decide to do it, be polite, be confident, and be clear. Go in informed with a figure you definitely want and be willing to negotiate. That's what it is. It's a negotiation. Now, you may do all of this perfect and it still won't get you anywhere. Maybe the company's struggling without you knowing. Perhaps there's something going on behind the scenes you just don't know about. Some work's going to go, or redundancies are coming. Perhaps the pay scales of the company are set a certain way, like the NHS. The NHS pay scales are set where they're set. Once you get to the top, you're not going anywhere else, no matter how hard you try. Or the offer on the table is nowhere near where you need it to be. Well, in that case, it might be time for a new job or a new career. And this video here is going to help you with that.